Welcome back to the Chargers franchise, everybody. My name is MrHurriicane, and this video here is just the scouting portion of my Season 1 recap. When I was recording, I spent a lot of time on both the stat and award recap and looking at the prospects for the upcoming off-season draft class. So I split up the two sections, and this is just a look at our needs and the players that could potentially fill them. And if you want to see the stats and awards, check out the video link down below in the description. When I look at this roster, it's a mix of aging veterans, but also young players with a lot of potential. We're headlined by players such as Keenan Allen at 25 years old, Jason Verrett is only 26, Melvin Ingram is now 28 and playing very good football, Jeremiah Atachu is only 24, but we also rely on players like Philip Rivers, and how long is he going to stick around? I would love to know the answer to that question. There's also Antonio Gates at 37. We do have his replacement on the roster. Matt Slauson is 31. Danny Woodhead is 32. King Dunlap is 31. And Brandon Mebane is 32. Dwight Lowery is 31. So this is a key offseason to help us be prepared for the departure of all of these players, because at some point it's going to happen and you have to be prepared. When you sim as far forward as I am right now, it does show 1 year remaining for a lot more players than it should, because it's looking ahead at also who's expiring next year. But basically our biggest free agent that we have to think about now is Manti Te'o, and if we want to keep him around. And I've already talked about wanting a coverage linebacker and someone who can complement Denzel Perryman. I would like to get someone else in here, so I don't anticipate keeping Manti Te'o around. And there aren't a lot of players with expiring contracts that I'm all that worried about at the moment. I already took care of the big one, that was Melvin Ingram. So the rest, we're going to see what the opportunities are, what everybody wants, and then we'll hit free agency and see where we're at, and then clean things up in the draft. Alright, I know a lot of you have been waiting for this. You guys want to see what prospects are available for the Season 1 draft for the San Diego Chargers. Now I'll open by saying, as we go to my watch list, that I don't find this to be a particularly strong draft class. Now, if you look at the top players, I haven't scouted a lot of the top rated players because most of those aren't going to be there where we're picking in the middle of the first round. Now, when you look at our needs, I am prioritizing safety, offensive line, wide receiver, and middle linebacker. Is there a spot I want to address more than others? I would love to get a safety, a playmaking safety, someone who can be reliable in coverage, maybe even a man against the tight end, and someone who can help us get more turnovers. But is that our top priority? I'm not sure. There are a lot of areas we could get better at, and it's simply going to be basically a best player available at our needs thing. And in the first round, there are some really good players I'm looking at here, and this is my watch list. As you scroll down, there are quite a few players, and some I still have to finish scouting more in the off-season. But remember, this year in Madden 17, you can't scout as many players because it takes more points to unlock the first rating, as opposed to it being the least last year. So, we're going to go, let's go position by position right now, and it's easier for me to break it down that way. If Philip Rivers retires, there are two quarterbacks that I have targeted here in the first two rounds. There is Max Byrne from USC and Sean Lorenzen from UCLA. So if it's not Philip Rivers, we're still going to look to Southern California for our quarterback spot. We have two players here who are accurate and have the good throw power and a prototypical build. So if Rivers retires, at least we have a couple scouted that I like. And if you go to all available, haven't scouted the first round guys, but if Rivers retires, you can bet that I will. And as you go down the list, just not accurate passers from what I have scouted. At running back, there aren't many early round options, and I wouldn't prioritize running back that early. I like Melvin Gordon, and I think he's always going to have a prominent role in the offense, but I also want to have another back that plays alongside him. Now, a tandem like Melvin Gordon and Danny Woodhead is actually quite weird to me because neither are going to give you that between the tackles punch, and we already saw Andre Williams wasn't that guy either. So I've mainly looked at backs on here that I think could provide what we're looking for, and that is someone who is dependable in the red zone and on third downs. But of course, with Danny Woodhead, you also get that pass catching option as well that he's so good at, and you'd like to get a blend of power and catching, but that is such a rare blend to find, and I'm not seeing catching as a top rating for any of these players, so that's going to be an issue moving forward. I am a little bit concerned about Woodhead either retiring or not sticking around, because I did take a look at his contract demands and it was like $5 or $6 million a year, and I'm not going to be paying that, so he's likely going to hit free agency. I would love to bring him back if he doesn't retire, but we're going to be prepared for the draft just in case, with players like Sheldon Ladler, who has an A stiff arm, not an A-. That's a clean A right there. B+ carrying, B+ ball carrier vision. This guy could be a closer at running back if he is a true power back from Delaware State here. If he can be an effective runner, then I would love to get a guy like him on this team. There's also DeMarcus Scandrick here is more of a speed back, and I toy around with all these lower rated, lower projected skill players because there's always room for a fast guy. There's always room for somebody to return kicks or to have a role in the offense no matter what it is. Then you have Barry, I'm not sure about that last name. If we draft him, I'll figure it out. But he's another guy with B+ trucking, A- stiff arm. And then we're Sean Whitfield, another option, much like DeMarcus Scandrick here, with more elusiveness, vision, and juke. The same 3 top ratings, just in different spots and some different grades. Fullback, not worried about it. Derek Watt, I think will do that job fine for as little as we use a fullback. Wide receiver, it could be where we go in the first round. If we can get another good receiver to complement Allen and Benjamin, it gives us much needed depth if one of those guys goes down like we saw this year, and it also completes the passing game a bit more. Reggie Shepard is the top rated guy I found here with B+ spec catch, B catching, and B catching traffic. Now I would like to get a big receiver to be another red zone option for us, but I'm not saying that's the only thing that I'm looking for at receiver. We could also go with a guy like Gant Suggs, who's a speed receiver, and he comes in with A- spec catch, B+ catching traffic, and B catching. I might actually rank him higher than Reggie Shepard because that A- spectacular catch is a true dominant trait. Then there's Dion Cartwright from Louisville, who has A- spec catch as well. He's a little lower rated than Gant Suggs, so he would be a second option if Suggs was off the board. And I assume that, these receivers could go quickly, depending on who's picking in front of us. There is Cedric Macklin, who is just a good all-around receiver. I'm not sure if I'd be excited about taking him in the second round, but he seems to be a pretty good player. And with that B release and B- route running at 222 pounds, that makes him an intriguing option to play both in the slot and on the outside. There is Pearson Hardison, who's another red zone threat at 6'6", 227, and he's another guy who could just be a go-up-and-get-it receiver. Malik McNair, you can see I've spent a lot of time on these red zone threats. I think we're having a lot of options here, and we don't necessarily have to go receiver early, but it's going to depend a lot on the combine numbers and how that ends up skewing my opinion on these players. As we go on to the 5th round, perhaps a gem prospect here, Sylvester Morrell, A- spec catch, B catching traffic, and B catching. When you can find receiver value late, you can get in a really good spot finding, like the Vikings did with Stephon Diggs and other players have been found at receiver in those late rounds. And it's a tough spot to really find good wideouts. So when you can, that's a big boost not having to go early in the draft for a receiver. Tight end, I do think we could probably bring in somebody if Gates retires, but with Hunter Henry on the roster, I think I could find a cheap option in free agency and not spend a draft pick on this spot. Unfortunately, it is not a good year to need linemen in the draft, and I don't expect us to be heavy spenders in free agency either, but there are some options at various positions. Now, we have King Dunlap as one of our older players on the roster, but there aren't a lot of great left tackle options here. Mac Best is a first-round prospect. We have him as a second, and he does have B pass, B impact, and B minus run blocking, so I would think about him in like the second round, or maybe trading up from our second pick. Maybe not in the first round. I doubt he would be the highest rated player I would think of in that spot, but he's at least one of the more quality options in a weak left tackle class. Yes, there are only 6 draftable graded left guards. None higher than a 6th rounder apparently, but I did find another potential gem in Tavadis Bethel. He has B minus run block, B minus, whoops, I skipped it. B minus pass block and C impact, so a developmental prospect who actually has a pretty good floor as a backup, I would say, with a low 80s run and pass block. Now, center, I'm not looking at that much right now. I did find Terrence Hazel here, who is a pretty good option, 3rd round developmental guy, but we have 3 centers on the roster, and I think we'll end up sticking with those guys moving into year 2. Right guard is much better than left guard, and we have a few guys on the watch list here. We have a run blocker here, Darius Banyard. Then we have a player here, Jarrett Lipinski, who has a B impact block and B minus run, C plus pass. BJ Ackerman, B run, B minus pass, C minus impact, and that, you know what, he's probably not a watch list guy. C minus impact, that's too much to come up from. You can't be a starter with C minus impact blocking. A 2nd round prospect, I think I'll pass on that one actually. I'll put Jamal Cargile on the list instead, and we're going to scout that last 3 spot right now. It's a C pass block. I might prefer that combo honestly to this one just because C minus scares me off. At right tackle, we have a couple on the watch list here. They're both projected to go in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. There is Houston Palco, who is a better run blocker, and so is Keelan Spate, and he has B minus impact blocks. So you'd have to give the edge here to Palco, who is ranked higher, although Spate is 6'7", 338. Just the ratings edge here goes to Palco. I'll keep Russell Hanson here on the list and see if he has a good combine as a 4th rounder, so maybe you can snag him late, and he has a decent developmental set of traits here. Now to defense, where we have a lot of talent. I'm not looking at a lot of defensive ends right now. I did scout a few first ratings for a few players, but I spent a lot of my points elsewhere. Here is Cole Herman, who's a 1st round option. I just wanted to see what was there in case we're there in the 1st round and there isn't like a guy I really like in that spot and you have to take somebody. Regardless of need, I want to find a talented player, so Cole Herman's an option, although I doubt we'd end up taking him unless he fell. Then there's Keenan McAllister, a 6th round prospect I like a lot, with B minus finesse moves and B minus hit power. You need a good combine to keep my interest up, but a 6th rounder with a good pass rush move like that is always going to be on my radar. At defensive tackle, I'm mainly looking for a replacement for Brandon Mebane if he retires, and I like a young nose tackle on the roster regardless. Kashawn Riddle wouldn't be that guy necessarily, but he is a good run stopper, and it says that he's a pass rush player, so that's interesting, although I don't see what his dominant move is. It could be like a low 80s pass rush move, but it's not shown here. Nose tackle though, Kadir Dockett, B minus power, B minus block shedding. That gives you a good foundation to build upon in getting that nose tackle to anchor the middle of the defense. There weren't many players here with a nose tackle style, so I didn't spend a lot of points at defensive tackle, and I may have to look to free agency for a cheaper option. I want to get much more of a rotation in our pass rush next year because we had our top guys play as many snaps as they could handle because our backups weren't great. A lot of development needed there or more talent. Now again, if we're stuck in the 1st round and we're kind of in no man's land, if a guy like Ryan Ledford is there, A minus power move, you bet I will take that opportunity. B plus block shedding as well. Going down the list here, Austin Langford and Sean Dantzler each have a dominant power move, and I'll see what the combine looks like to separate who was the better between these two. I would prefer Dantzler right now because he's projected to go lower, so I could get him at a better value. Okay, I spent a lot of points this year on middle linebacker. I was searching searching for somebody who could give me a zone coverage as their top 3, and I didn't. I found a lot of really good players, however, a lot of A- traits. So I would look right now at Kirkland Sintim. He has a cover 2 build here for a player, a cover 2 style. So I would think that his zone coverage would be better, or maybe a prototype or balanced player could give me that option. A 3-4 tackler, I know I scouted them just to see if there was perhaps a gem here with a zone coverage. There just wasn't. So I would likely look for a cover 2 balanced or prototype player. I'd take a guy who had a fast 40 and try to hopefully get someone with a good enough zone coverage to begin, or at least someone who is a developmental candidate and perhaps can get some XP along the way by being a good run stopper to help build up that zone coverage. But we have options here, but there isn't really anything separating them because I haven't found my big need yet. At right outside linebacker, same situation, looking for those pass rushers. And Glenn Petty is an option here with a B power move in the 6th round. And up top here, Clifford Thorpe, who I believe, I forget, was he the Heisman winner? He might have been the Heisman winner. I do believe he was. Doesn't have that dominant pass rush move, but he does have B+ block shedding. He's also a little undersized, probably more of a 4-3 player. Maybe he could be an inside in a 3-4 and have pass rush upside, but hard to say right now. At cornerback, we're not very fast outside of Verrett, and we don't have a lot of man cover ability outside of Jason Verrett. So cornerback is something I'm always going to keep my eye on, and I have a 1st round option here with Richie Crutchfield, who has a B zone coverage, B- press, and C+ man coverage. And the theme here looking for corners was size and really just trying to get a better blend of coverages, because we have a couple guys who are more zone specialists in Hayward and Flowers, and I want to have the option to play man more often, and that wasn't the case in year 1. So I do need to do some more scouting on a few of these players, and I'll have the points to do that. A lot of 1st round corner options here who I've scouted the 1st rating for, and then as we go down there are a few more options as well. If I take a player who's better at zone, that's okay, he fits our scheme better anyway, and we're still going to be a zone heavy team. I just want to have a little bit more option to change things up if the matchup gives us a better spot to do that, or if I want to switch things up on 3rd down. So a few good corners here on the list, nothing that really stands out to me right now. And then free and strong safety. I think both spots are up for grabs if we can find the right players. We have Runder Baugh, who has a C-man coverage, B hit power, but pretty much all these guys can hit. So good hit power is not going to be a separation for anybody on this list. I'm looking for coverage, of course, and anything else is really a bonus. And the best option here, I think, was at strong safety, a 5th round prospect, which is nice for value, Rashawn Wilkerson from Duke. B+ hit power, B- zone coverage, and C+ tackling. Also, Dexter McElroy would be an option, especially if he slides down the board. We have him as an undrafted player, and if he slides down, he'd probably be an option for us. So I'd like to know what you guys think of the scouting rate here, and who are your favorite prospects going into the draft. I'll spend some more time looking at this board before the offseason, and then obviously once we get the offseason going and the combine numbers, then we have a better idea of who the best players in this draft are. But I think that whether we have to go for a quarterback, we're in a good spot, we're prepared there. Receiver, we're prepared. Linebacker, we should be prepared if we have options that can run and cover. Coverage is going to be a big question mark, and I hate to not know and have to draft somebody high, but it might be something we have to do and have no other choice. But I'll definitely keep an eye on coverage linebackers in free agency, and even if there's a guy who only plays 3rd downs and can cover, I'm open to that opportunity. So that should do it here for this recap of Season 1. I hope you guys enjoyed it. The off-season is up next, and right now I'm looking at either Thursday or Friday to have that stream. I'm not 100% sure what day it is going to be yet. Either day, it's probably going to be at around 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time, and then it will be on my channel afterwards. So I'll post an announcement video the day of the stream in the morning sometime, and I will also tweet it out once I know for sure if it's Thursday or Friday, but one of those 2 days at 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We'll get the off-season going, and we are well ahead of schedule compared to last year. Only made it 4 years last year, and the goal has been to get at least 5 this year. And I look back at my Jaguars franchise, and I posted the Week 17 episode last year on December 27th, so I'm almost 2 years ahead, or 2 years, I'm almost 2 months ahead of where we were with the Jaguars franchise. So I'm looking to get this offseason going, get you guys the offseason and the preseason stuff quickly, and then make our way to Season 2 and get going here late in 2016. Thank you all for watching today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I want to see a lot of feedback down below on who you guys want to see drafted, perhaps. Did you like any of those college players? And who do you think should perhaps be kept going into next year? Who should be let go? I'd love to see what you guys have to say. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the off season. I'll announce that very shortly. And have a great day.